Leafs GM Brad Treliving spoke yesterday at the NHL Scouting Combine. What did we glean from the comments? Let's discuss on today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf Centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. What's up, Dave? How you feeling on a Wednesday?
Feeling pretty good. Another night where I had to find
question marks. Why?
I'm trying to find. I spent the night listening to interviews on YouTube because I'm like, there's nothing to watch.
Oh,
I watched the Jays game. That was over before he even started. Like, my God,
this Blue Jays team, brother. Like, pray for Locked On Jays. Pray for them.
Oh my God,
everybody.
We might have to send over like a
care package,
like a wellness check on them at some point.
Wellness check.
It's
yeah, possibly. It's bad, man. It just like bad to worse. Just when it seemed like, oh, maybe, they won a few games there against the Pirates and they swept the White Sox. Like, oh, things starting to go the other way. No, they play a good team who actually knows how to play baseball and has half decent players. And it's like, you can't pitch to us. We're going to hit every single ball out of the stadium. Just kidding. That's only Ryan Mountcastle. Dude's just a Jays killer. So that's what's going on currently today for a lot of Leaf fans. Obviously, nothing to watch. No hockey going on. Still got to wait till Saturday to see hockey. There's no NBA Finals until Friday. So there's not a whole lot to watch outside of baseball. And unfortunately, the Blue Jays, well, they kind of stink right now. So you don't want to watch that either. So yeah, it's, you can. I'm curious, how are people filling their time this week? Let us know. Dave's watching YouTube videos, apparently. Let us know in the comment section below how everyone else is kind of filling their time, their evenings, without any sports. Couple things that we got to get to today. There's a bit of an update on the Lane Lambert situation, as it sounds like he's nearing a deal to come to Toronto to join Brew Bay staff. And Brad Treliving was down in Buffalo right now for the NHL Scouting Combine. He was speaking with Pierre LeBrun. So LeBrun's rumblings piece had a couple of good quotes that might kind of tell us what LeBrun or what Treliving is thinking about as the offseason continues for him. And there's obviously questions on Bertuzzi and Domi and Marner. So we will get to all of that today as well. But let's start with kind of the Lane Lambert update. Jeff Merrick added on his show today that it sounds like it is very likely that Lane Lambert is going to be joining Brew Bay staff. It's a matter of when, not if, at this point. But the new little wrinkle is apparently, Dave, he could be coming not as an assistant coach, but as an associate coach. Eh?
Yeah, that was the interesting part of it, right? Like, and I know some people are like, well, what's the difference between an assistant coach and an associate coach? You want to take that one because, like,
yeah, like not a lot. Like, obviously, the associate coach is like the number 2 in command, I guess you could say, and they've got a little bit more responsibilities. They take on some of the head coaching duties. I'm sure every head coach treats his associate different. It's not all cut and dry as to what goes into it, but they take some of the things off the plate of the head coach, and it's almost like a 1B head coach in a way. And we've seen this happen many a times before. I think technically was Lane Lambert an associate under Barry Trotz? Like that might have been a thing when he was in New York, potentially. But we've seen this before where guys, just want that little extra on the title, especially if their former head coaches makes them feel good, kind of. And they get a little bit more responsibility. And ultimately, I guess if you have a resume with associate coach on it, you're probably more likely to get, interviews when coaches get fired and they're looking around. All right, who's good out there? Okay, this guy's been an associate. He's, half a head coach, I guess, with some of the duties. So I think it's just best for your next job in your interviews to be able to say that, yeah, I was an associate coach. I did XYZ to help out. Other than that, maybe it comes with a bit more of a pay increase, a few more duties, but yeah, it's very similar to an assistant.
And to your point earlier, he was the associate coach from 2018 to 2022 with the Islanders before taking over as head coach. So
There you go. So that's just what he does. Lane Lambert. I am not an assistant. I am assistant to the regional manager. I'm associate to the head coach. That's Lane Lambert. So that's kind of the update there on him. I hope we get the coaching staff name soon. I don't know why it's taking so long. Like now it sounds like okay, Lambert's gonna happen. We're still not sure about Mark Savard. Uh Still not sure, I guess, about what's going on with Mike Van Ryn, Dean Chenoweth, and Guy Boucher. The expectation is that Boucher and Chenoweth are not going to return. Mike Van Ryn still possibly could return. He does have, an obvious link with Craig Berube. They did win a Stanley Cup together back in St. Louis, so they've proven that partnership can work as a coach and assistant coach partnership. So I would imagine that they would be keen to working together again. But until it's all official, I guess we really don't know. Uh, Hopefully it does come rather soon, though, for the Maple Leafs and Craig Berube. All right. On the other side, Dave, let's get into what Brad Treliving had to say down at the NHL Scouting Combine. He spoke with Pierre LeBrun, and there's some quotes in LeBrun's piece that maybe peels back a couple layers of the onion when it comes to this very complicated Maple Leafs offseason. So we can kind of get to that and more on the other side. You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA and the NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano and David Morassutti with you here on the show as we are each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. We've got 5 shows a week that come out to you. All Leafs all the time here on the Locked On Leafs podcast, available wherever you download your audio podcast. You could also find the video format of the show up on YouTube. And if you haven't already and you are enjoying the content so far, if you're new or you just periodically pop in to see what's going on with Dave and I, we'd ask if you enjoy the content to please subscribe. That'd be greatly appreciated. We're still on a road to 10K. We get to 10,000 subscribers. We're going to give away another jersey. So we're not close enough. Not close enough to really get that push going, but slowly but surely, a lot of you non-subscribers who tune in on a daily basis, got to sub up. Let's get us to 10K. We can give away another jersey. All right. So, the offseason is well underway for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and it's been speculation galore for the last little bit, obviously. That's kind of what it's going to be for the next little bit. We like to sometimes call it silly season here on the Locked On Leafs podcast. But, we got to hear from the horse's mouth himself a little bit yesterday, or I guess we got to read some of the quotes that he gave to Pierre LeBrun, rather, as opposed to legitimately hearing him specifically. But Brad Treliving down in Buffalo at the NHL Scouting Combine, Pierre LeBrun obviously down there. Lots of things happening. This is a really good time for GMs to meet with player agents, to meet with obviously the players, the draftees themselves. Good chance to kind of sit down and get to chat with them and get to test them. But also, all the agents and all the other GMs are down there as well. So a chance to, pick up on some trade discussion, a chance to talk to some of the agents about possible extensions with other players. Maybe you get a hint. Hey, is this guy testing the market? What's going on with Tanev? You know what I'm talking about? Lots of stuff could be going down. And also possibly a Mitch Marner conversation could be going down between Darren Ferris and Brad Treliving. I would imagine that that there could have been some discourse there. Um, where do you want to start? We might as well start with the Mitch Marner stuff. That is the pressing stuff here. Why don't you pull up a couple of the quotes from Brad Treliving that Pierre LeBrun detailed when he was speaking with him earlier today, or Tuesday rather, earlier on Tuesday in Buffalo. So, basically, we all know that we've been talking about Mitch Marner and how he's got this full no move, and we discussed it on yesterday's show. How Marner and Darren Ferris, it sounds as though that they are willing to play out the final year of the contract if need be. That's something that they're willing to do, and essentially, I'm sure that's exactly what Brad Treliving was asking, or what Pierre LeBrun was asking Brad Treliving about those comments specifically. And essentially, he came out and he kind of talked out both sides of his mouth, though, didn't he, Dave? Like, did we really get a definitive answer here? Like, on one part, he's like, hey, here's what I'd say. He's a great player. He's got a full no move, and we're not gonna make a trade just to make a trade. Mitch controls a lot of it, but then he did go on to say, but if we have a chance to make our team better, we're going to do it. So,
But there
what
was
did
a
you
quote.
make of kind of what we heard from him? Yeah, the quotes
There's a
here.
quote here at the bottom that really stuck out with me. We're not scared to be bold and do things, but there's going to be things. There's got to be but there's got to be things to do out there. So we'll see. But for me, we've got a really good player, Mitch Marner. That's a good thing. We'll just keep plugging away on it. I didn't think that part here. We talked about this yesterday. The potential fear of trading a player like Marner, or just Brad Treliving having to go through a similar situation as he did with Johnny Gaudreau or Matthew Tkachuk, right? The fear of either losing the player for nothing or making a trade that doesn't hit the mark. And so I think with this, I think for him, he's like, look, Mitch controls a lot of it, but he's also hinting that they're not exactly going to, let him control the whole thing as well. It underhandedly kind of says it too, right?
We'll see.
Right? Like he's leaving the
We'll
door
see.
open. He didn't give, like, obviously he keeps saying the whole he's a good player, but he didn't say, at no point did I really hear him say we're going to make it a priority to get him signed.
No, and I don't think that
Right?
is a priority. It doesn't sound like it, and that's probably why
No.
Darren Ferris, to save face, I'm sure he knows there's no contract coming July 1.
Yeah.
I'm sure he knows that, which is why we heard them say, yeah, we're willing to play out the year. That's a safe face. They don't want to be embarrassed and sit there and beg and plead for a contract on July 1.
Yeah.
Right. So they're saying, yeah, whether it comes or not, we want to play out the year. We don't even care. We want to. We're not even going to accept a contract. It's kind of the way that they made it seem. But I don't know if there's even one to accept, to be completely honest with you. Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating summer. I mean, this is going to be a story all summer long. We know it. This is not something that's going to go away, and there's going to be continued discourse and discussion about it. And Brad Treliving is going to be asked about it. All of the agents are going to be talking about it, or all the talking heads are going to be talking about it. the agent is going to be asked about it nonstop. So this Marner story definitely going nowhere. But what you just mentioned, a couple of those quotes at the end there, that we're not scared to be bold and do things. I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah.
Because the Maple Leafs have been scared to be bold and do those big time deals to trade away one of their star players. So I'll believe it when I see it. I'm sure you're kind of in the same boat.
1,000%. Like,
Mhm.
don't tell me, show me. Right? I'm one of those people.
Yeah.
Talk is cheap. Don't talk like a politician. I hate politic talk.
Yeah. Yeah. The one thing that I did like was at the end of one of the quotes, he did say, after talking about the deal, Mitch is a hell of a player. He's going to the last of his deal. We're not going to discuss in the media, but we've got to look at every possible way for our team to be better. He did say that.
He said,
So
and he did say it too when he was talking about the other players as well
right, which we
that
can
they
get
want to bring
into.
back.
Yeah, we can get into that right now. The two players that were discussed were Tyler Bertuzzi. I was gonna say Ty Domi, Tyler Bertuzzi, and
Good save.
Max Domi. Were the two players that he was also asked about for pending unrestricted free agents. We haven't heard, where things are in negotiations. No figures or terms have really been leaked yet, outside of that god awful number of like 5x5 last week that LeBron was talking about Domi. I think that's since been refuted, that the Leafs are nowhere close to that number. Thank God. And it kind of also seemed like that through some of the comments that was made by Brad Treliving. I don't know if you want to pull that up and we could try and find that one. But essentially, he came out and flat out said, "Hey, look, there's it's early in the process and whatnot." What do you say here? You've talked to the team since the end of the season. We've got several free agents. You're meeting with the agents. I don't know if that's the spot that I'm looking at
Oh, here
here.
you're looking at this. Are you looking at this one here? It's
Yeah,
got to work for them and it's got to work for us.
yes, yes. We've certainly got some issues that we have to address on the roster. There's a pie and there's only so much to go around. So that's the part where it's like he's well aware that he can't just sit here and give everybody all the forwards the money again. It just can't like he can't sign everybody. And there's only one pie and there's only so much to go around. It's true. So if Domi's gonna want 5 million or Bertuzzi's gonna want 5 million, and you're gonna want 12 and a half of your Mitch Marner, just not possible. Not possible whatsoever. And he knows that. So he's got to try and figure out what the hell he's doing with the rest of his team, I guess, before he can really lock these guys into contracts. But it does seem like there has been or there was discourse between Bertuzzi and Domi's agent at the scouting combine, and they'll continue to kind of go back. What I did find interesting was no mention of Edmondson or Ilya Lyubushkin at all in the piece. So there's really been nothing about Lyubushkin. Like Edmondson has been brought up a couple of times. No one's even talked about Lyubushkin. I wonder if they've kind of written him off as
I kind of wonder that too. Well, and there's a quote here from Treliving that kind of popped my eye a little bit too. It's like, obviously we got a few guys who are up, and part of this is getting better too. It's not just about being the same. You're trying to get better in the process. Yeah. So I think it's also like, yeah, we can try to bring everybody back, but is that going to make us better? And that's where I think, I mean, that's an easy thing to say, but I think like the mindset is right there. You can go out and you can try to bring Lyubushkin back, but what's that really going to solve? Is that going to solve your blue line issues? Probably not.
No.
It's a matter of, can you find something better than Ilya Lyubushkin? Can you? I don't know how much better you're going to find than Joel Edmondson for the role that he played, right? But like, it's always a matter of, can you? You look at the teams like even look at Florida, how they get to the Cup Final. They found ways to get better. That's what you have to do as a team, right? They're back because they made adjustments, they made changes. Even Edmonton, they made adjustments, they made changes. It's not the same team each and every year. And I think for the Leafs, we've been talking about it's been the same thing each and every year, the same problem each and every year. So now it's a matter of, Yeah, has it taken them way too long to figure that out? Yes, but this is also somebody who's only been here for a year and had, he didn't he had to go at this at a
Yeah,
running
like
start.
yeah. So we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening this offseason. Like we said, it's going to be a pivotal one. And not everyone's going to be happy, I guess is how we can say it. There's some guys who are not going to be able to return, and there's going to be some people who are going to want to come back, and the Leafs won't be able to do it. And there's also going to be some fans who don't want certain players to return, and the hands might be tied when it comes to that. So it's going to be a circus of an off season, and we'll be covering it each and every day here on the Locked On Leafs podcast. So I'm looking forward to it. Coming up on the other side, the Stanley Cup Final is set. It's the Edmonton Oilers versus the Florida Panthers. There are 6 former Maple Leafs that will be vying for Lord Stanley's mug in the next couple of weeks. We are going to power rank our favorite ones from a fandom perspective. So our top 6 guys who we will be happy to see win a Stanley Cup. So that's coming up on the other side. You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano and Dave Morassutti with you. We are power ranking the former Toronto Maple Leafs in the Stanley Cup Final. The parameters of the power ranking are going to be from 1 to 6, and we're basically power ranking how excited or happy we'll be for the former Leaf to get a Stanley Cup. That's what the power ranking is today. Do you want to start 6 and go through 1, or you want to start at the top and go through 6?
Let's go from the bottom up. It's easier to get the lower tier guys out of the way.
All right, we'll start there. Who do you got at number 6?
I mean, we'll put Jack Campbell there. I know that we were even discussing this for a bit of whether we even wanted him on the list because he's technically like not in the picture when you're looking at. I mean, unless the Oilers go on a catastrophic goaltender injury bug,
Right.
Imagine that. How
He'll get a ring though. He'll get a ring. I believe he would have played enough regular season games to get his name on the cup. Like I think you gotta.
Is there a different mark for goaltenders than there is for skaters?
Ooh, that's a good point.
Because he only played 5 games this with Edmonton this year.
Oh, I thought he played more than that.
No, he stunk
but I
so
think
bad.
Goalies, you might be able to get away with it. Like goalies, you might only be 5 starts in the regular season, and you can get your name on the cup. I actually don't know the answer to that question. I would look that up maybe. Maybe he won't get his name on the cup. He'll get a ring. He'll definitely get a ring. And if Jack Campbell wasn't so bad, then maybe they don't turn to who's the goalie there? Who am I blanking? Stuart Skinner. Maybe they don't turn to Stuart Skinner so quickly or so vastly. Or sure, I don't know. But really, he's 6 though for you?
Yeah, he's 6 for me. I love him as a person. He did good things in Toronto. He had those records. I went back, watched the Amazon series. I didn't realize, keep forgetting the records he had as a Leafs goaltender for like wins in a row.
Yeah, the home wins in a row, or to start the season, he won like 10 straight games or something.
Yeah, how many? I think it was like how many starts he won in a row, because obviously there were some injuries in between there, and that's the thing, right? There were injuries. Then I mean, look, his play fell off. So at the end there, so I think I like the guy, but he's not a guy that I'm exactly like. He's not front of mind when I'm thinking about these Stanley Cup playoffs.
All right, I got Evan Rodriguez in my 6th hole because he never even suited up for the Maple Leafs. He was part of the organization, so it's kind of cheeky that we even have him on this list, but he technically is, and I am at 6. Like, there's zero attachment. There's nothing when it comes to Evan Rodriguez and the Maple Leafs. If anything, he got traded there and then said thanks, but no thanks, and ended up going elsewhere. So Evan Rodriguez is number 6 for me. Who's number 5 for you?
Yeah, it was Evan Rodriguez for me.
Mm.
This is a player I actually wish the Leafs had kept around because he's a very very useful player. Versatile, can play. I think they said maybe he could have played center for Toronto. Then he just didn't stick around in Toronto, and he's done pretty well for Florida too. Through these playoffs, he took that nasty hit from Trouba. So maybe just from that, I feel like he kind of deserves it because he's putting his body on the line there to try to help Florida win a cup here. So I'll give Rodriguez a little love.
Fair enough. I have Cody Ceci in my 5 hole. I've got Cody Ceci here, and I've got Jack Campbell in the 4 hole. So I'm assuming Ceci's in your 4 hole?
Yeah, he definitely is.
So we've got the same bottom 3. We just got them in a little bit of a different order. So mine's Campbell, Ceci, Rodriguez, or Campbell, Rodriguez, Ceci is. No, sorry. Rodriguez, Ceci, and Campbell as my 6, 5, 4. And you had it as Campbell, Rodriguez, Ceci as your 6, 5, 4, correct?
Yeah, I don't and I don't mind going a little higher on Campbell. It's just with Campbell, once he left for Edmonton, cut the cord. That was how I felt about him.
Oh, but the other guy who left for Edmonton is all good. Are the other 2 players who are still on this list somewhere for you? Them. We'll get to them. Number 3. Well, I guess this one technically actually was a trade. Number 3 on my list is Connor Brown. He's number 3 on my list. Obviously, yeah, he's a bit different. He was traded. He was part of the Zaitsev dump, wasn't he? Zaitsev.
Yeah, so he was they had Ottawa obviously to take that deal. Like, we got to get something. And Connor Brown was a good player when he was in Toronto. Like, he was at one point playing top line with Austin Matthews. He was it was like the Brown Matthews Hyman line.
Yeah,
good penalty killer. It's he was a solid player for Toronto. 20 goals in his first full season.
Yeah.
Got traded. Traded to Ottawa. And his Oilers tenure could not have gone off to the worst start possible.
I was having this conversation actually with a buddy today. Obviously, at one point in the year, he didn't score his first goal until March. It was insane how long it took for him to score his first goal of the season. And there's this looming cap hit, this cap overage next season where Brown, regardless if he's playing for Edmonton or not, it's going to cost them $4 million against the cap in bonus money. And I remember thinking the fact that this guy's not contributed a single goal to this team at this point, we're talking late February, and already he's got a cap overage of $4 million for next year. I was like, that is so tough. But based on how well he's played here in the playoffs, would you say that Oilers fans maybe don't feel as bad about that contract anymore? And if they win the Stanley Cup, ain't no one gonna care about that.
That's the part there. I was like, yeah, it does not. They don't give a what if they win the cup about any cap overage until next year when they're but let's talk more about the Darnell Nurse being an issue with their situation than Connor Brown.
Yeah.
I just remember when they made that deal. I actually wanted the Leafs to go out and get Connor Brown to try to bring him back. And then when I saw the deal Edmonton signed, I'm like, yeah, no, the Leafs were not going to do that because they literally need to make sure they don't have anything like that on their cap. But
no, not at all. So Yeah, the Leafs were not going to be able to match that deal. So I had Connor Brown number 3. Who's your third guy?
Yeah, he was my third guy. Like,
Okay.
I can't put him any higher. Like, obviously, I got him higher than Cody Ceci, but I don't have him higher than the top 2 in our ranking.
Yeah, and I mean, we probably have the same top 3 then. I mean, it's very obvious and evident that people love Zach Hyman in this city,
Mm-hmm.
still love Zach Hyman, Toronto native, and want him to go on to win a Stanley Cup. It's like, I feel like people are going to be more happy about Hyman winning a cup than they will about McDavid winning a cup. And it's like, that's the conflictedness of Leafs Nation. It's like, I don't want McDavid to win a cup. I don't feel this way. You feel this way, by the way. They don't want McDavid to win a cup, but they would like to see Hyman get a ring. So there's the conflict there for a lot of Leaf fans. So he's the number 1, and then Carter Verhaeghe, another kind of cheat because he never technically played with the Maple Leafs, but he was with the organization. But just what he's been through in his career to churn out the role that he now has in Florida as like a top 6 guy who just continues to just play well in big games, score big goals, 30 goal scorer now, like just the story and the perseverance to go from, basically the ECHL, American League, bounced around between a few teams, and then finally caught fire here in Florida the last couple of seasons. And now here he is on the verge of winning a Stanley Cup. I just think it's a great story. So I'd love for him to win a cup. So he's number 2, and obviously Zach Hyman, number 1, the one that got away for Leaf fans.
Yeah, it's the same order for me. I flirted a bit with Carter Verhaeghe at one because like they both have similar outputs in how their points output. Obviously, Hyman's got more goals, 14 goals, like absolutely ridiculous for Hyman. But I always forget, like people always talk about Carter Verhaeghe as like, oh, the Leafs let him get away. They weren't the only team. Like the Tampa Bay Lightning had Carter Verhaeghe on their team, and then
Yeah.
lo and behold,
Islanders?
he takes Islanders. Yeah, when they made that 5-for-1 trade for Michael Grabner, hated that trade. Like obviously Grabner was like flashy player, but I'm like, you just gave away like a bunch of young players, which is the one thing you should never do,
Yeah.
right? But that thanks to Lou Lamoriello for that one, and then he went through the ECHL a bit there, and then Tampa, he finally got his NHL shot. Then he went to Florida, and man, like as soon as he exactly, and like that's the killer. And like it's not just the regular season, it's the playoffs.
Yeah.
His playoff numbers are fantastic. I think like first year in Florida, okay, they didn't go far. That was a tough year for all of them. But then 12-10, when they went on their long run, 17 points in 21 games and 17 points in 17 games this year. Like this is a guy who is a consistent contributor, exact type of guy I think the Leafs would love to have in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd imagine there's a few guys on this list that the Leafs would love to have, but they let go at certain points. So yeah, man, I think it's a solid list here. So we both kind of have our top 3 of Hyman, Verhaeghe, and Connor Brown. And then I had Jack Campbell at 4, CC at 5, Rodriguez at 6. I think you had Campbell and Rodriguez flipped.
Yeah.
Or you had CC, then Rodriguez, and Campbell, I think is how you had it.
Yeah.
So kind of a similar, our top 3 is the same. A little bit of juggling in the bottom 3. But I think regardless, I think we're all pretty much rooting for Zach Hyman. I think which is why it's funny if we talk about former Maple Leafs, and Leafs Nation, and how much people don't want the Edmonton Oilers to win a Stanley Cup, and they want the Florida Panthers to win a cup. But it's like, how could you root against Hyman? How could you root against that guy getting a cup ring? Come on now.
The worst part of it too is I was talking to my neighbor who's like, he's got kids in minor hockey big time. And he's like, yeah, Zach Hyman came to their hockey camp and did some work with them. Then he invited them to, they were in in Pittsburgh. They were at a tournament, and he was in town, and he met up with the kids too. And I'm like, oh, it's like a real good guy. I ran
Great.
into him randomly. I don't know if I ever shared the story. I ran into him once randomly in downtown Toronto. Like it was him, his wife. I think he has a dog too. Yeah, it was his dog as well. And I'm like, oh, like great to meet you, and just chatted for a couple of minutes. Like he is a down to earth guy. That's why it was so tough when he left, because a lot of people liked him not just as a player but as a person as well. And yeah, like what he's done this year, and obviously the story, how we talked about him when he got to his 50 goals and the discourse around that, and a certain hockey media member trying to make
discredit for his
discredit or whatever
accomplishment.
you want to call that. So that's kind of where initially I was just like, like he's just like cherry picking off of McDavid. And then once that came out, I was like, nah, we got to stand up for Hyman a little bit more here. He's a little more than that.
Hyman's too good of a dude, but if I were Zach Hyman, if Zach Hyman were a petty fella, if the Edmonton Oilers win a championship, probably every single day until training camp, I would be sending a Twitter GIF of DX just doing this, the suck it DX to that media member every single day of the offseason, by the way. But
he should pull Phil Kessel's thing was the hot dogs. Remember when he won the cup? No, his thing should be
put like fat stacks of cash in the cup.
Yeah, that, or every time I want to thank my parents for giving me the obvious advantage that no other kid could have, and for putting me in this position. Like, just go full out like that. Just lean into the narrative.
Thank you to the Benjamins for many years of nurturing. Oh yeah. All right, buddy. That'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on X at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti, and follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. We'll be back with another episode for you guys tomorrow. But until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.